Hey friends, this is Heather. Thank you for joining me on my channel today. I am working on another project for My Creative Scrapbook. This is for the March main kit, and as you can see, I am doing a double page layout, which I haven't done in years. I wasn't quite sure until probably 3/4 of the way through that this is really what I wanted to do. And you can see that the time is sped up super quick because this was actually a really long video, and I wanted to leave a lot of it in, and obviously it needed more time because it was 2 pages instead of 1. But I can only upload so many minutes to YouTube. So it is sped up really quick. I am just showing you my texture paste I plan to use, or I was deciding on whether to use. I have a transparent one and a Heidi Swap one that is like metallic, but that comes a little bit later. And I showed you a glimpse really quickly of the stencil that I plan to use. Came with the kit. It just has circles in it. So that is my theme, if you didn't figure that out already. I am using an old tool that I got from, it's a Martha Stewart. Excuse me. I've had it for a long time, and I use it to cut photos because the largest punch I have is like 3 inches. So what I was doing was cutting out some circles of scratch paper first before I actually cut my photo to figure out what size I wanted to cut it before I messed it up. And I could have reprinted them if I did, but I'd rather not. The collection is travel themed, and while we travel some, I don't know anyone who travels more than my parents, and I basically steal photos from their Facebook page. They take selfies wherever they go, so they are cruise lovers for sure. They take 2 or 3 a year, and they go to the Caribbean a lot, Alaska. There's a photo there of them in Seattle, which I think they were just waiting to board another ship to Alaska. But I know my mother is probably not thrilled that I am using so many photos of her on my project, but I collect these photos because they're sweet photos. I think it's sweet, you know. They travel so much together, and they really enjoy it, and I thought it was perfect for this collection. And because I had a handful of them, I really wanted to do a 2-page layout. So you'll actually see here shortly, I end up switching out a photo. They're actually, while I'm recording this, they are on another cruise, and I saw a couple photos that they posted, so I printed them, and I swap out the one that's just of my mother alone, which she'd probably be happy about, and I bring in 2 others, so you'll see that here shortly. So the cut files that you see there's a red and a blue and a yellow one. Those are part of the exclusive cut files, available for free to anyone. You don't have to be a Kit subscriber, but you can download them off the website. Just click on the add-on kits tab and scroll all the way to the bottom, and you can actually access all of the previous cut files that they've offered each month. And I think these ones are actually designed by Ashley Horton from the Cut Shop, and which are appropriate, obviously, with this collection. So I started with those cut files, and that's why I decided to cut my photos into circles. And if you see my arm like reaching over momentarily, it's because I'm watching other YouTube videos, and and I want to make sure that I hit like before I move on to the next one. So anyway, so I am just trying to figure out the placement of the embellishments. A lot of the sticker embellishments I played around with, and some of the ones you see there I don't end up using, but I place them on a piece of tissue paper so I can place them down without actually committing until I'm ready. And I do that with the titles as well. See there, I'm putting those on wax paper just so I can put them on there and get an idea of what it will look like, because when it's on the backing sheet, it's white, and it really doesn't give you a clear idea of how it will look when it's layered over top the embellishments. And I did decide to add the strip of the black and white checkered because I knew I couldn't just have the circles like cascading across from left to right. I needed something else in the background. I took a couple of the branding strips and layered them on either side. And the hard part for me for this layout was just making sure that I had a good balance between color and size. And because I think if you have on a double page layout, especially if it's too heavy on one side, it creates this whole imbalance and it doesn't look complete to me. So there you see those new photos that I, with the magic of editing, got in there really quickly. And at first I was trying to avoid including the pink. I play with one of the flamingos there, and I'm like, gosh, I don't have any other pink on this layout. And I really was trying to avoid that because none of the photos have pink in them and my circles don't have pink in them. And but as I moved on, I realized that my sort of one of the main title pieces, I was using the cut file that says adventure, and I cut it in yellow, one of the pattern papers, but I wasn't sure if I was going to back it. And then I decided to back it, and I backed it with the striped pattern paper, and it has all the colors in the collection in it, and it has a stripe of pink. And yes, I know it's just a little stripe of pink, but that's where my mind goes, is now I have pink in one place and I really need to add pink somewhere else in order to mimic or to tie it together. Especially with a double page layout, you really need to have a balance of shapes, and colors. So once I decided to do that, like the floodgates opened, because then I was free to add in anything. So right now I'm going through the floral pieces, which are beautiful, and a lot of them had the pink in it, and so I was limiting myself which ones I could use. But once I decided to bring in that other pattern paper, I was free to do as I wish. So this right here is basically what there I am, I'm liking another video, what my final design ends up like, in general speaking, because I do switch some embellishments around a little bit. And I do keep the Vacay there. Those are the foam thickers, but the getaway, so this is what I'm thinking of while I'm creating this layout. The getaway is too long, and it's throwing me off. So I end up switching that out later. And the fact that my photo on the left bottom hand side was too large for me, like I couldn't cut a circle out of it and get the background of the photo in it still. That's why I decided to just cut off the bottom and sort of have it up to the edge. And then I decided to do that same thing with the red circle with the arrows in it, just so there was a balance there. I hope that makes sense. But now you can see that I have backed that adventure cut file with the pattern paper, and it has the green in it and the pink in it. And so now I am free to use all the colors, which made it a little bit easier. I probably made it hard on myself, limiting to just those, the primary colors, I suppose you could say. And I'm using my punch to hold down the paper because I have applied some clear gesso to it, and that does warp your paper somewhat. And I wasn't quite sure what kind of mixed media, other than I did want to use the stencil and some texture paste, and I will do that coming up at the end. So here's where I am deciding what other thickers to use, and I pull out the Love, which wasn't my first choice, but I also like the fact that it had a different font than the Vacay, and then the Adventure was sort of different. So, but they took up the same amount of space, like the Vacay and the Love. So to me, it looked balanced on left and right. So here I'm just marking where the pattern paper should go. And I have cut down my white cardstock now because I realized at some point I really did need to have a border, and I didn't have two of the same pattern papers, although even if I did, I wouldn't cut them just to use the border, because I want to use them for other projects. So I bring in black cardstock, and you'll see that I do that here a little bit later. So I'm using the stencil and my Prima light paste to add some circles on the background. I used my sewing machine to add some stitching along those strips of pattern paper, and let me just warn you, if you're going to put pattern or paper through your sewing machine that has textured paste on it, be very careful because it doesn't want to slide under the foot. If you're a sewer, you know what I mean. It doesn't, it gets stuck and you sort of have to pull the paper through, which messes up the stitching a little bit, but that doesn't bother me at all. But you'll see there that I attached all of my clusters of photos embellishments together, so it was really easy to move without having to design all of those pieces again. It was much easier to attach them, you know, sort of in groups, so I can bring them to the layout and take them away without having to mess up what I had finally agreed upon and committed to. So I have attached my black cardstock, which I think makes a world of difference. It definitely needed a border there. And what I did mess up on, if you haven't already noticed, is, well, when you do a 2-page layout, you need to have some fluidity through the middle. It needs to look like, I know it's not going to be side by side in your album, but if you were to have it exactly side by side, there needs to be some fluidity as if it is just one page, just one really wide page. But I cut a 1/2 inch off of both white pieces of cardstock, and then realized that I wasn't going to have a black border in the center. So that's why there's a little bit wider black border on the sides, but that didn't bother me so much. I could have trimmed it down, but then it wouldn't have been a true 12 by 12. So I left it as is. Here I am trying to use my pastels from Prima, and I pulled out some gelatos, which I hadn't used in so long, to try and match the colors of the collection, because I did want to add a little bit of mixed media. And off camera, after I added the texture paste through my stencil, I did go back and add some clear gesso on that black and white pattern paper. And you can do that over your texture paste or modeling paste. It really doesn't make a difference. It will actually just repel a little bit off of the circles or whatever you put down in texture paste, and that was fine with me. But I did that because I didn't want the black and white checkered pattern paper to, get too warped, and you need that as a barrier, especially when you're adding a bunch of water. So here I finally found a mixture of colors with the oil pastels from Prima. Actually, I don't know if they're oil pastels. But they are water soluble, kind of like gelatos. And playing with both of those again recently, I realized gelatos definitely have a lot more pigment in them, but they're harder to, like, I don't even know what the word is, to draw with them, to color with them. The pastels are so much creamier, but I love them both, and I'm using a red gelato, which I'm not a huge fan of, but I felt like I couldn't get away with just using yellow and blue on the background. So here I'm just going over the areas that I use the texture paste and sort of like spreading the color around, like fading it out from each cluster. Of course, I'm going to add some splatters. And I do actually come in with some shimmers and Heidi Swapp Color Shine and some matching colors just to give it a little bit of shine, because I can't go do a layout without having some sparkle. And I also use my aqua shimmer pen on some of the die cuts. So I added some journaling around the back, around the outside of my layout, and I put some sequins down in some areas, and that is it. I really hope you enjoyed this process, and I hope you found some inspiration. Please feel free to leave me any comments or questions below, and I will get back to you. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate your support. Please like the video if you liked it, and I will be back again soon with another project. Thanks so much. Have a great day. Bye-bye.